This is the new Wahoo KICKR Move. It takes the existing Wahoo trainer and lets you, well, move. In this review, I'm going to walk you through how this trainer works, how you get it unboxed, all the kind of everything from the basics into the movement pieces, the accuracy, whether or not both my wife and myself like the movement after riding a bunch over the past, I guess, month or so now. And with that, let's just dive straight into it. The first thing to know is the price. The price has increased over the existing base KICKR model, which does stay in the lineup. The new price is now $15.99 for this, which is pretty darn pricey. Now, from a spec standpoint, this trainer is a Wahoo KICKR 2022 trainer. At the end of the day, this is what this is. That means spec-wise, it's got plus or minus 1% claimed accuracy. It's got 20% incline, max supported 2200 watts. If you're not sure if you have 2200 watts, I promise you, you don't have 2200 watts. That's a lot of watts. I top out roughly 1,000. Zero calibration algorithm is built in, basically meaning the idea that you don't ever have to calibrate it. It automatically calibrates behind the scenes. And then up here, you've got some lights that will show you the connectivity. And there's 3 connectivity options. There's ANT+, unlimited channels of that. There's Bluetooth Smart, 3 concurrent channels of that. And there's Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi allows you to connect your Wi-Fi network, and apps like Zwift and Trainer Road, etc. can see the trainer. You pair to that, and you're off and running, rotting, I guess. In this case, you're pedaling along and the trainer will automatically change the resistance according to the terrain, meaning if you're going up 5% incline, it'll simulate 5%. If you're going up 10% and so on, 20%, etc. And then on the other side of things, if you're in erg mode or a structured workout mode where it's automatically controlling it at, say, 200 watts for an interval and then drops down to recovery for 100 watts or whatever the case may be, it'll do that as well. That's called erg mode, basically just structured workout mode, versus the regular mode where it's changing the gradient is called sim mode. And this, of course, supports both of those, and you can still adjust the height down here if you need to. So you can see there's a 700cc wheel height, 650s, or 29 mountain bike height. You just kind of undo this whole thing and then rise and lower it. But this is ultimately the exact same trainer as last year, just mounted on this big old contraption. As I mentioned, it has an 11-speed cassette on here, but you can swap out that cassette for 9, 10, 11, 12-speed cassettes. It's got through-axle adapters as well as regular quick release adapters, all included in the box as well. It comes in a box, obviously, but this is a new box. It's a new Wahoo KICKR box unboxing experience. It's an audio-visual experience, which includes a bunch of tutorial guides that you can walk through. But most notably, you just drag this thing out of the box and you're done. You don't have to do all this complex setup or anything like that. But essentially, the idea behind this is that you can move front and back. So you'll see here, this whole thing slides on this roller system right there. And essentially, it's going kind of like this, up and down. It's a bit hard to see from the side that you're moving up and down, but you are moving up about 1.5 centimeters or so as it goes up and down towards the back. Basically, that's that forward and back kind of movement. That movement will happen when you sprint, but it's also going to happen anytime you're just riding along. It's going to subtly move like this, just a little bit back and forth with each pedal stroke, which gives you a little bit more of that road-like feel. And I hesitate to say road-like feel in anything with indoor training because at the end of the day, you're locked on a thing on the ground staring at a wall. But it does help out. And that's why we've seen the popularity of rocker plates and other motion kind of devices for trainers skyrocket in the last few years. We even saw Wahoo themselves add these compression feet on both ends of the trainer. I guess you can't quite see it there. There we go. There's a compression feet there, a little kind of almost like foam style feet to give you a little bit of that side to side movement. And the same is true here as well. While there's no direct side to side movement, meaning that tilting side to side like you have on a rocker plate, this whole contraption, if you will, does have a little bit more side-to-side movement than an existing locked-down KICKR. I think for both myself and my wife, the very first time we got on this, it was like, whoa, that's a little weird. But after 1 minute, you get used to it and you kind of feel more stable there, especially if these feet are all the way down on the ground. You can kind of loosen them and tighten them and so on. So if you look at here, you can loosen them like this. You can see right now on this particular table, it's a little bit offset. I loosen it down, now it's nice and firm. You can also change the firmness of the feet that are included in the box. And hey, just a quick note before we go on to the next thing, if you're finding this video interesting or useful, just simply whack that like button. It's just like hitting this like that, just like that simple. It really does help out this video and the channel quite a bit. Now, back on that movement, for both myself and my wife, the movement while you're just in steady state riding felt normal. If we do some sprints, one of the things you're gonna find is that you hit the end of the movement swing here. When you really power into a sprint, you're gonna come and hit that end point right there, which is about 7 centimeters forward or 7 centimeters back, depending on which way you go. And it can be a clunk, so you can hear it. There we go. If you put it really hard, it can clunk. But that's because there's nothing weight-wise on this right now. When I put my weight on this, you're generally not going to hear that loud clunk because your weight is basically causing this little groove channel that's kind of like an upside-down rainbow from hitting the very end there really hard. I would say overall on the movement side of things, both my wife and I were pretty happy with it. For longer rides, especially multi-hour rides, having that movement there just gives that little bit extra and gives you more saddle comfort, which is really what movement's all about, whether it be rocker plates or otherwise, is it simulates some of that outdoor movement that happens when your bike is naturally moving and tends to cause these micro adjustments on the saddle, which has been shown to kind of reduce saddle fatigue or fatigue in general on long indoor trainer rides compared to like a stationary, just not moving sort of thing. Trek actually did a study years ago about that, and it's true here as well. And there is no way, by the way, to buy just the contraption portion of this, largely because this is like welded to this. It's quite a bit more than just like slapping, cutting off the bottom of your legs and sticking it on here, which I can definitely appreciate. Also worth noting, by the way, that this is compatible with the KICKR Climb, but it requires an extra climb accessory, basically a little, they call it a boot, to put on the bottom of the KICKR Climb, which allows that whole thing to tilt front and back. Additionally, you can lock this if you want to by pressing this right here. So this is a locking mechanism. So if you don't want that movement, you're like, I'm done with movement today. Press this here and boom, it locks it into place and you're good to go. Next, here is a very simple audio clip to listen to the sound of the trainer. Keep in mind this is a very echoey room in a non-ideal drivetrain. The only thing you're hearing right now is simply the drivetrain, not the actual trainer. Ride feel wise is exactly as it was the same before. The inertia is really solid on this flywheel. General rule of thumb is the bigger the flywheel, basically the more inertia you're going to get. So you'll feel like you're accelerating and decelerating correctly out of things. The smaller the flywheel, the less inertia you're going to get and the less realistic it'll feel. But realism is very, very solid here, just like it was in the past. So all is good on that front as well. The last question then becomes, is it all good on the accuracy front? For that, let's jump over to the computer and dive into the accuracy data. So first up, we'll look at an erg workout, some 30 by 30s here, basically going from high intensity, low intensity, back and forth in terms of wattage. You can see it matches the Vivero Osceola pedal spot on. As we zoom in, you'll notice that yellow line, that's actually the SRAM rival left side of power meter. So it's a single leg power meter. That's why it's so different, because my legs are different at higher intensities. But more importantly here, when we look at responsiveness, it is spot on. It doesn't overshoot, which is the problem I see in a lot of smart trainers. This nails that set point each time individually and doesn't overshoot that, meaning it doesn't spike 30 or 50 watts above that. It goes from 150 to 450 in about 2 seconds, which is exactly what I want to see. Looking at another erg workout here, this has a bunch of different things going on, some medium surges, some high intensity sprints, and some longer 10-minute segments. If we look at these about 700-800 watt surges right here, you see it's spot on with the Stages LR as well as the Wahoo pedals, really good there. This is the 10-minute segment. Now the zoom has changed here, so it looks a little bit more wobbly than it actually is, but things are only about 5 watts apart between these power meters. Taking a quick glance at the cadence, you see very, very good. A couple brief drops there when I go to a sprint or a surge, but that's normal for kind of an estimated or calculated cadence on a smart trainer. And then the mean max graph looks really good here as well, so I've got no concerns there either. Now we got a Zwift course in sim mode, basically means I'm just following the gradients of that particular route, so up and down hills and some flat sections. It's a really good course for valid in different areas. You see in these surges right here, it's really spot on. We do again see that yellow line of the left-sided single-sided power meter there, because that is matching kind of my left leg and the imbalances there. But if I look at the other surges and some of the more steady state riding, it pulls in really nice and tight there. And is perfectly aligned to the Vivero Osceola dual pedals that are on there, basically spot on. Really good accuracy, but again, I come to expect that from a KICKR, especially one that's exact same model as last year. We see here the cadence looking good. Again, those little drops of the cadence for a second or two on the backside of a sprint, which is normal for a lot of smart trainers, the Wahoo KICKR included. But overall, the mean max power graph you see right there, showing how these all compare over the course of the entire ride, is really, really solid. Next, just a quick glance at one of my wife's workouts. This is an erg workout from the other day, here against the rally pedals. Note the scale here. These are only about 2 to 3 watts apart. These are really, really astoundingly close across the board. As we zoom in on these intervals here, she has a bit more variability in her pedal strokes. You see a bit more variability on these erg mode basically sets, but overall within, like, again, 2 to 3 watts across the board. Very, very close across there. And here's a sim mode workout where she's just cruising along in Zwift. Relatively easy workout for her, and it's spot on across across with the pedals compared to the Wahoo KICKR Move. Okay, so there you go. Look at the accuracy. As you can see, spot on for both myself and my wife's rides. So ultimately, what do I think about this? Well, this is a solid trainer. Yes, it's more expensive. There's no changing that. You've added a bunch of stuff on the bottom here, and it's more expensive. However, at the same time, if you were to go buy a rocker plate, the cheapest you're going to realistically get away with buying a rocker plate these days at $300 to $400. So let's just call it $300 and give the benefit of the doubt there. Rocker plate is a much bigger thing, so it's going to take up a lot more space there in your room, versus this is basically the same size as the KICKR. It's not much bigger than the KICKR, so not much different in terms of space, and it's all just one built-in thing. Now, of course, a rocker plate is going to tilt side to side, versus this is not tilting side to side. It's only going front and back. I really liked, for example, on the Tacx Neo with the motion plate, that very slight forward and backward, mostly in erg mode, but even just regular steady state riding. Sure, in all-out sprints, it doesn't feel super awesome to hit the end there, but I don't do a ton of like all-out sprints all the time. It's just not how I tend to ride. So gotta kind of trade what you want for there. But overall, I'd say solid road feel, solid option, and certainly if you're looking for a Wahoo trainer, this is their top option. And I would say price-wise, it fits where it should be based on having the extra features here and based on the rest of the market. Now with that, if you found this review interesting or useful, go ahead and whack that like button there. I've also got a review coming up of the Wahoo KICKR SHIFT bike, which is basically their lower end bike they also just announced today. I've had that sitting over here, so stay tuned for that. You can hit subscribe so you don't miss that video once it drops. With that, have a good one.